We all have big dreams, but far too often we never give them a chance to come true. Well, that all changes today. Welcome to Just Keep Learning, where we'll help you develop the right mindset, be more productive, and learn more effectively so you can accomplish anything. Here's your host, Justin at Just Tries.
Our guest today is a business and mindset coach who also hosts a pretty successful podcast himself. We talked about the path to becoming a successful coach, how to change your own mindset in order to achieve your goals, and he opened up about some of the more vulnerable things that have guided him in life. Please welcome to interview 45, Luke Page. All right, well, one of the things that I love is listening to your podcast, knowing how, let's say informal, not in a bad way, but in a really good way, you tend to start episodes and have a real conversational style to what you do. So I so often start episodes saying, in some way, shape, or form, who are you and kind of what do you do? You know, that classic thing, which I'd love to get into. But to take a page out of your book, I'd first love to ask, what's going on, what's new, and how you doing today?
I'm good, man. We're just like, it's 7:36 a.m. here in Australia. So it's my wife's just started going back to work last week because she's been on maternity leave. We had a baby boy almost a year ago. He's going to daycare for the first time last week. So we're adapting to this new schedule. And I haven't exactly been the most accommodating because I've had appointments like this in the times and days where my wife's going to work and our son's going to daycare. So I haven't figured out our schedule yet. So it's been a little bit crazy. Yeah, what's been going on? Heaps has been going on. My business is going really well. It's been a really massive month. This month's been big. I started doing acting, weirdly enough, last year. Doing random acting jobs, and I kind of have somehow stumbled onto this, and I actually am enjoying it. And I've been getting so many offers for acting jobs this month. Yeah, this month's been a really I don't know. I'd have to call it amazing. Just all the things that have been happening for me. And I've just had like all these opportunities being thrown at me. And yeah, there's just so much going on. So in amongst doing my business, I'm updating a big online portal of one of our main core programs called The Leading Coach. So there's so much going on. There's the normal stuff I've got to do for the business. There's the extra work for uploading the online portal, which is a lot of work. There's, adapting to kind of my wife going back to work and working that with minding our son at times and all that. And then I've got these bloody acting jobs that keep on coming on my door, which I just can't knock back because the opportunities are too good. So yeah, man, there's a lot going on at the moment. It's been a full-on month, but I'm feeling really energized, man. Even though the work's been a lot, I'm just feeling excited about everything that's happening right now.
That is energizing as well. And maybe I'll just steal the intro then because that was so thorough. So you're a good person. You're a podcaster. You're probably a parent first, if I may guess. I know that you're a coach and a businessman and now actor. So what else did I leave out if we were doing the full intro?
Oh, come on, man. Yeah, my wife and I are joking about the actor thing. But I'm just kind of like, when do you actually, what's the point where you actually, because it's weird. I'm like, would I call myself an actor? Like, no way. Because it's weird when I go into these acting jobs, I'm with legit actors. Yeah. People that this is their life and passion, and acting's not my life and passion. So it's like, I don't see myself as an actor, man. I'm just like, hey, this is something that I'm doing and I fell into it and I'm kind of just enjoying it. I'm loving all the things about it. So yeah, my wife and I are kind of joking like, what's the point? When do I actually start introducing myself as an actor? And I don't really know. Maybe when I do a big job or something like that, or maybe just in my own mind where I'm like, you know what? I can call myself an actor.
Yet.
But just so everyone knows, I ain't doing movies and TV shows, right? This ain't A grade stuff. This is like G grade. I'm doing like TV commercials, social media ads. Yeah. So nothing amazing. So don't Google me and go, oh, what movies is this dude in? I ain't in any movies.
Yeah. And the reason I said yet and interrupted a little bit with that quick, sharp thought of yet was because yet is such a catchphrase to the concept of growth mindset and Carol Dweck's work, which is really the foundation for this show, as this idea that you said you're not an actor. And I shouted yet because so often we don't know what we might become and what names we can give ourselves later. And it's funny because as you're sharing this story, something that I've always thought of, and I was sharing this with another coach as well, was the idea of like collaborative coaching. I guess you just call that like friendship conversations. I don't know, but it's almost like this conversation could come into one of those collaborative coaching kind of sessions right now, because I have a thought, and I think it depends on if you want to call yourself an actor, then it becomes, once you decide, that's like the Rick Rubin, when am I an artist thing. However, if you don't want to, and it's literally like, hey, this exists, so I'm going to go do it, little bit of cash, it's a fun time. I actually have done a lot of that myself too, which maybe you don't even know. So that's kind of a funny coincidence. And then,
so you've done acting?
Well, I'm in a similar boat, and then I would kind of smirk and say, well, I'm not really an actor. However, like if this was a live stream and we were screen sharing, I could show you some commercials I've been in, which around here, commercials actually pay really well. You sit there and do nothing and get paid a few $100. Yeah. So, some like background of movies. I've probably, if I were to try and go unionized, which here in Canada, at least, you keep all of your receipts basically from doing those gigs, and then you can submit them to be part of the union. It's not an interest of mine, but I would probably have, I don't know, 25 receipts or something like that. So I've been on set 25 times in the last 5 years. But for me, it's very similar to you. I don't consider myself an actor at all. I do it for, I find it an enjoyable pastime, I guess, and then you're getting paid.
Yeah, I'm similar, man. You know what? Very similar thoughts around it. I originally got into it because I'm like, I needed to get money when there's inconsistency, right? And I'm like, how can I have, and I needed control around it. So I didn't want a job, but I'm like, okay, if I needed to get money all of a sudden, I need something where I can pick and choose. And I just came across this thing. And then from that, just doing it, I'm like, hey, I'm getting paid good money, number one. Number two, a lot of the stuff is out of my comfort zone, and I'm massive. Yeah. Like I've always been like, if you can get paid to do things that push you out of your comfort zone, which take you closer and help you get towards your vision, that is the best thing you can ever do. Yeah. And I'm like doing all this stuff, which is out of my comfort zone. So, you know, me being in front of a camera whilst there's a crew there, kind of acting, it's out of my comfort zone. When I have to jump on and do a video or coach people, it just seems like it's nothing now, you know? So I'm like, number one, getting paid to do things that actually increase my skill set, which is going to help my business grow and me grow as a person. This is a no-brainer. And then I actually enjoyed it, and I'm meeting all these new people and making connections. And I'm like, it's just plus. So I've just kind of stuck with it. And I even said to my wife yesterday, I'm like, the other day, I said, I think I'm going to keep doing this acting thing because at the moment it's just fulfilling needs and it's only a good thing for me. So, yeah, man, I'm kind of on the same, like, is that why you got into it? Like a similar type thing?
Yeah, I'd say so. And for me, along those lines, quickly, I also have the opportunity of vocational teaching, like because of my background as an educator. So having those kind of a la carte, I could work today, I don't have to work today things are always something that I've had in the back of my mind. That's definitely it. I did grow up around a father who did some acting. Like, I don't know if the idea of theater murder mysteries are a thing on your side of the world, but here they're fairly popular. You know, people go out to dinner, and then at the dinner is an event where actors are playing out a murder scene. And I actually grew up backstage while my dad was doing those for a company that's pretty big. He probably could have worked every night if he wanted to, but it was for him just, again, a hobby and kind of like a paycheck sort of thing.
Right.
Doing the podcast and starting to meet some people in the world of social media, some of them were actors. And so Cara Ricketts, who's on a previous episode of ours, who's just become a friend over the years, does a lot of acting. She's actually a lead in some video games, something that people wouldn't really think of when they think of acting. And just having conversations with people who are actors, who have movie credits, who have lines and stuff like that, seeing the industry a bit, it went from, yeah, it's a cool a la carte part-time job. I'm getting paid a little bit to hang out, but I can always say no. Like, there's no commitment if you're not one of the actual people in the credits.
Yeah.
Then, you know, I can say yes or no. It was available evenings when my family was asleep a lot of times, because they'll do late night shoots around here and things like that. But that did transform. I think you and I are at a very similar spot where I'm kind of like, if the opportunity came to do more of it in the future, I would definitely explore it more, I think. But it's a tricky industry to actually succeed in, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one thing I've kind of learned is it's very because I speak to a lot of the actors and I'm like, so tell me about yourself, like what have you been doing, what jobs, tell me about your career. And what it reminds me of is building a business. And it's like you've got to stick at it and you've got to want it more than anyone else and you've got to cop rejection after rejection after rejection. And I was like, I'm hanging out with mini business owners, little dreamers here that, want to make it. And I met this kid, I did this big TV commercial last Monday. It was for I don't know if have you got Solo in Canada?
I don't think so. What is it?
It's like a lemon drink. It's pretty, it's big. It's like Sprite and Fanta. It's not Coke or Pepsi, but it's the next level down. So big production. Mm-hmm. And this kid was, he's about 6 years old, and there's two lead characters. He was one of them. And I said to him, "What do you want to do? Like, is this what you want to do?" And he goes, "Yeah, man, I want to be in movies. I want to be the big Hollywood actor type thing." And he'd been doing, at a young age, acting school, doing all these acting jobs and stuff like that, and working his way up. And that was his big, his first big role. And he was nervous about it. But I just kind of saw it's the same thing. It's growing that business and that dream. Like you've just got to stick at it and you've got to eat crap at the start. And then, if you keep at it, that big break will come eventually. And most people like the idea of becoming the Hollywood actor, but they ain't willing to go through the shit. And all those Hollywood actors that we see, on our movies and TV screens, mm-hmm. There's just so much work and dedication that has gone into crafting their skill that most people have no idea. People in the industry do, but the everyday person watching the movie, watching the TV show has no idea what they've gone through to get there. They kind of just think, they're good looking. They've just got it. They've just got a break. No. Sorry. They have worked their ass off to get there and they've worked so hard, and it's just no different to the successful business owners. So I just think they're so similar there, and that's what I've loved connecting with these people, because it's like they're just kind of like me in a way, yeah. So even though I don't exactly see myself as an actor just yet, mate, just because I look at them, yeah, why I'm probably not calling myself an actor at the moment is because I don't have the dream of the acting like them. So I don't know, something in my brain is saying, hey, Luke, you don't deserve you call yourself an actor when these people are bleeding for it, and I'm not. But hey, man, yeah, you know what? That you've put a thought in my mind there about it comes down to me just deciding, do I want to put a label on it and just go for it, which I technically can. There's some other resistance in there, probably some sort of self-doubt, yeah, which I probably haven't really thought about, but maybe I will start. Cool. I don't know, man. It just seems so weird to me, yeah. So, but yeah, I really relate to these people in building my own business. They're building their own business into some degree, and it's the same stuff. We're climbing this massive mountain with these challenges, and yeah, the ones that stick it out and want it enough will get there, and the ones that don't will give up, yeah, and just go, you know what, this is too hard. It's not worth it. I'll go get a job. So similar.
Yeah, 100%. And I think people grind for a long time and never make it. The other thing that's interesting, which is, the same as business or coaching, and business and coaching, certainly in any of these goals that we have, I love looking at different industries, or as some people might call them, passions, I guess, and then trying them. That's why I made my handle what I did at Just Tries, is that's part of why I like going into something like music, trying it, going into, movies, trying it, maybe poetry. I don't really care for that first little bit, and then deciding, okay, do I want to pour gas on this fire? And like you said, start bleeding for it. If I do, then there are so many similar approaches that you need to take to succeed in all of these areas. And I'm sure you would coach people in those types of things. And the reason I bring that up is because the sad thing is, I see this on set too, is you see people who've been sticking at this 10, 15, 20 years, but they don't have the ability to like win friends and influence people or network the right way, or they're not, you go to their socials and they've never created a reel even once, let alone a reel a day of them acting out a different scene or doing things they could do to build leverage. And then here I am there being the person who doesn't even care about acting and thinking and reflecting and being like, well, like in the 8 hours that we've been sitting backstage waiting to maybe be called, I could be emailing different directors to see if they have a movie coming up. Like there's so many things that I would be doing if I was trying to succeed in that industry. And then I think that's what's really interesting. You see some people who do succeed relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And that's another kind of fascinating thing. The other thing that I feel is interesting about it though, to your point about sticking with it, it's so funny. I never would have thought of being in the world of acting, but supporting actors is an interest of mine. Clearly, it's an interest of yours too, by happenstance. But it's like, it's amazing compared to like athleticism, right? Because if you stick with it, you have from whatever year you are old to the day you die to continue to possibly pop and succeed, right? Because you could finally get cast as that like dad or the grandfather in like a huge blockbuster film. And you see that, right? There's I think someone shared on socials, I apologize if it was you, but about Morgan Freeman starting acting at like 47 or something.
Yeah, it wasn't me, but I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I could be getting the date way wrong, but there's a lot of stories like that, right? And so
Yeah, of course.
I think it's just an interesting industry like that. It's similar to playing music, that I think if somebody is going to pursue a very difficult to achieve thing, then to me, I wish I knew younger to pursue something like that instead of football, American football, because it's like once you're done at 22, you're done. There's no coming back from that.
Yeah. So what you're going to say about the sports person is the athlete is generally on a time, like their time's running out type thing, as in the actor, hey, this could be, you got almost your whole life to break through.
Yeah, and you're not like this natural talent, but you're going to stick with it. That exists in the acting thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is in sports, you got to be big, you got to be fast, you got to be strong. Probably, you can't really argue with that. In acting, to your point, probably most of them are maybe good looking, or what we might stereotypically say is good looking. But there's roles for everyone, right? You have to. That's one thing. It's really interesting to me too, and then I'm sure we can get off the acting thing because this was not expected. But one thing that's really interesting about that world is their ability to hire based strictly on appearance. And I mean, that makes sense. Like, it's like almost common sense. And like, I'm just saying something super useless right now, but it's always still fascinates me because we're so used to like an equitable, like fair hiring practice world these days.
Yeah.
And then I'll get an email and it's like, we need someone who's less than 6 foot tall, brown skin, looks like they could be this guy's nephew or whatever. And a picture of like this man. And it's like, what the hell? So I get that. I'm like, well, it's not me. I'm out. And it's just such a fascinating industry, and that can't change unless they just have like a crop of people submit photos and they cast in reverse. But typically they're casting for specific things that were in a story. And so it's, I won't use the term racist, but it's like very specific to their needs, and I find that quite interesting, and that'll never change, right?
Oh yeah. They're looking for they want a particular look. Look, everyone's got pros and cons, and there's advantages and disadvantages, and you could say that, hey, if you're generally considered a good-looking person, it's going to be easier for you to find work. One thing I want to add to that is that on this big solo commercial, one thing that I noticed that I did that the other actors didn't do, and this is where you can be an actor, but I feel that, and you're talking about you being active whilst you're waiting to be called. Now, this is what I've generally seen so far from my handful, 6, 7, jobs that I've done, that the actors will sit around and talk and kind of unintentionally talk. So, for example, when I speak to someone, I speak to them with intention to find out information that's going to serve me. Yeah. So I'm actually asking them questions to go, okay, I want to find out about this person's life, to find out what's involved with acting, because I'm like, hey, this information is going to help me. Then the next thing, when they're hanging around, they're just like hanging around waiting for the job. You said that, hey, I'm on the computer reaching out to other directors. I see that so far what I've seen is they're not doing that. The next thing is that when the job was done, I went up to, and throughout the day, I made it a point to go up to introduce myself to the directors, the assistant directors, and made myself known. And I wasn't the lead there, but I was known by the end of the show. Out of the 30 actors there, I was the third person that was, apart from the 2 main leads, I was the third most known actor there. They all knew my name or anything like that because I made it a point to be known, right? And that's got nothing to do with your looks. Yeah, you can just, it's the point of actually going out there and going, sweet, how can I get people's attention? There's no different to sales, and what we do on building our business with social media. So I think there's all these things, and I don't know if they teach this stuff in acting school, but it's almost like I've used my skills of sales to I know things that a lot of actors don't know in regards to getting myself, because I know in life, you've got to get you in the minds of the person that you want to sell to. So whenever I'm dealing with someone, man, that's all. I'm just like, how can I get this person to remember me? What have I got to do, say, make them feel? So I'm on their mind the next time, yeah? it's like little things like this where if you're intentional with it, you just put yourself to the front of the list and you give yourself the best chance. Hey, in the example of the acting, maybe you're not the look, but in the future something comes up and, I remember that Justin guy. Man, he'd be perfect for this. But if you didn't do all those extra steps, then they would go, I'm just going to put the casting out to anyone. They've forgotten about you, even though, Justin, you were the perfect look for them. So I just think if you do all that and you're consistently doing it, you give yourself the best chance of success. Definitely.
And one other, you mentioned the idea of time management and kind of multitasking and doing things that not wasting our time, I suppose, is a great way. And we don't want to over obsess with it either when we're meeting people or trying to be social. But Danica McKellar, I believe her name was the lead on The Wonder Years. It was a pretty popular show in the 90s here.
Yeah.
And I was on set with her probably 4 times because she was the lead on a full movie and I was on there 4 days in a row. I'm sure she was there every day. What was interesting was when she wasn't spending time with her kids, she was writing books. And I thought that was quite neat. She's written a bunch of like math books for teen girls and for children on the concepts of math because she has a math background prior to going to acting. And I was like, see, that's a perfect example to me of like just leveraging the industry that you're in. And in that way, I'm sure she's quite successful with her whole math brand, but she's also a pretty big actor. It's not like she has the ego getting in the way of like, hey, I need to sit here and eat snacks and like, get a massage. She's getting something productive done to contribute to the world in like such a positive way, which I think is super cool. Maybe someday we'll both be leads in a film and then we can hop back on an episode and talk all about how to help people become actors.
Guaranteed, man. Guaranteed.
Or maybe we'll be in the same one. There's so many parallels from that to the world of coaching, for sure. When I've interviewed coaches, because that's not necessarily, it's not the niche of this show, but of course, every few episodes, there's someone who that's kind of their background. And so I find like there's 2 paths that we can take to discuss. And one is the business of coaching. If you were to talk to people who might want to get into it in the future, that kind of thing. Another thing, though, that's maybe harder to put into an ebook or like a blog post is the art of coaching as well. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about that for you, like how you approach actually coaching people and how you define coaching, I suppose, because talk about a massive industry and a massive like umbrella term,
I feel that there's a little bit of a difference between teaching and coaching. So teaching's just, I guess we get up in front of a class. That's the typical we're at school. So the teacher's up in front of the class and the teacher's at the whiteboard and running the class and might ask a question every now and then. I think coaching's more to do with you're helping someone become a better version of himself and getting to where they want to go. And the best way of doing that is helping them figure it out themselves. So I guess that from my point of view, teaching's a little bit more like you're talking to the audience and talking to your group. Coaching's more like, okay, yes, you're explaining a concept, but then when someone asks a question, throwing a question back at them is a huge one. And that's one thing that I always do with my clients. So they might ask a question like, what do you do when someone reaches out to you in the DMs and says this? Yeah. And I'm like, well, you could do a number of things. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? And they're like, I'm not too sure. And I'm like, well, if you had to think of something, what would it be? Because I can give you the answer. But if you can find the answer, then you're going to be able to build a skill set and a habit as well that is going to keep you alive. You see, if you can survive when you and I are together, but you need me to survive, then that's well and good. But there's going to be a day where you leave me and you're going to be out in the big bad world by yourself. And if you can't learn to survive by yourself, you'll die. You're not always going to have a coach there every second of the day. So in the moments where you don't, and the majority of the time you don't, you need to learn how to figure this stuff out yourself. So I think getting people to answer their own questions is a huge thing around my philosophy. I don't do it all the time, and it's definitely a habit that I've had to overcome because I've come from more of a teaching background, you could say. Like I helped people and I taught people how to sell, and I would train all sales staff. And it was more of a kind of teaching as opposed to coaching. There was coaching in there, but I guess that the caliber of people you were dealing with, majority of them were like just working a job. They kind of didn't live and breathe it. They're just like, I guess I've got to do this. You know what I mean? So it was a little bit like hard to work with those type of people. And I wasn't developed enough as an individual and a person to, I guess, empower them to want the whole thing, if that kind of makes sense. I was kind of at the point in my life where I'm like, well, I guess I've just got to teach these people, right? As opposed to get them to see that, hey, they need this and they want this. So they've got this internal drive. So yes, that would be one of the things. What else do I do? How do I coach my clients? I basically work, and this is whether it's my team, clients, I really work on, I like to be honest and transparent. And it sometimes means the conversations are uncomfortable, right? Sometimes my wife will hear me talking to someone that works for me that manages my social media. And she'll be like, oh, I heard what you're kind of saying there. Like, you sure you should have said that? Maybe I say it the wrong way, but I think sometimes when people hear what I say from the outside, if they're not used to it, it seems a little bit like, man, you can't say that. But I'm just kind of on the understanding that, hey, look, I really want to have a honest, transparent relationship with you. Yeah, because if we're kind of hiding things, then we're not going to be able to really get to where we want to go. Yeah. And guess what? When we're honest and transparent, sometimes the thoughts that we have and what we're thinking isn't going to be the most comfortable thing. And maybe exactly we don't want to hear it. But if we're got this same vision and we're heading down the same path, it's for the greater good. So I think having that type of relationship with your clients where you can say the things that you're thinking. But here's the thing with it. And this is one thing I didn't used to do. When I worked for this company and I did all the staff and recruiting and hiring and training. The boss of that company, what I learned from him was leadership. And when I say leadership, I mean as in we're going to say kind of, in a way, cliche army-based leadership. Like, hey, I'm in control. You'll do what I say type thing. But there's no love there a lot of it. Now, I might be, for the people, the army people out there, maybe this is different days. But I'm talking about the cliche army stuff that you see in the movies. They're hard-ass. They're like, hey, do what I say or you can brack off, yeah? So I learned that from him, that style of leadership, which is basically like authoritarian. You do what I say, I know what's best, don't muck around or you'll be gone type thing. Yeah, kind of fear-based leadership. Then I went to another company and this is how I got into coaching. I worked for a coaching company that did the same thing as what I'm doing. And then from that leader, he was massive on love. He spoke to me about the leadership of, okay, yes, have the authoritative leadership, but you do it with heart. And that was the first time I'd been introduced to that style of leadership. And that's where I really grew as a leader because I now had the strong presence of a leader, yeah, where I could hold myself against someone and I don't let people walk over me and I've got that inner confidence. But now I added the heart aspect, which was have compassion for people, do it in a nice way. And it's not this, you're trying to tear people down. Hey, if you don't do this, you're out type thing. That completely changed me. So now, for example, when I deal with someone on my team, I lay it down. I go, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, man, look, I just want to have a really open, honest relationship. This is our vision. This is where we're heading. And I just want to be really open and honest with our communication throughout the path and what we're going to do to achieve this vision. And I want to be able to tell you if I see things that maybe aren't working. And I want to be able to give you feedback on how you can improve. And sometimes, it's going to be quite upfront and there'll be times where it doesn't feel the best, but I just want to let you know, man, that I've got your back and I want you to succeed. I'm going to be here with you doing this thing. So it's kind of like there's the leadership, there's the heart there. And that makes a huge difference. And one thing that I'm really excited about with growing my business, which I haven't yet done, but I will over the next year, is I feel my strength is actually leading a team. I did quite a good job when I used to work at a job, which was, 10 years ago. I think I'd done quite a good job there where I didn't even have the heart aspect. Now I have the heart aspect. So one thing I'm really looking forward to, and I feel that my strength actually is, which I haven't been able to do that because I've only got one person working for me right now, is actually building a team. And that's kind of like the thing. It's like, well, you got to get yourself to get your business off the ground. You got to do all things yourself, but then to really scale it, it's not yourself. You've got to build a great team. So I feel to get myself to the position where I'm at now has been a struggle for me because that's not me doing all the work, relying on myself. I feel I'm great at motivating people and inspiring people to be their best and putting this whole little collective group together. So the next stage of business, I'm super confident that the growth is going to be very quick because that's where my strength lies. You know what I mean? So I'm now moving into the area where I'm ready to play on my strengths. So That's a long-winded answer for you.
I didn't time it, but I think long-winded is good, right? Because we're able to elaborate. And one of the funny things, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I was thinking about podcasting today and how there's no real right or wrong answer. Some people will create the 6-minute scripted episodes on a historical topic. Some people talk for 3 hours rambling on themselves about a historical topic. Some people will make 30-minute business episodes that are hard hitting, that are prescriptive as well. Some people will do 3-hour Rogan interviews. And I know that you and I actually fall kind of like in the middle with a combination of sorts.
Yeah.
But really, there's no wrong way of doing it. And I brought up Rick Rubin earlier because of his book. And I think that that's another great example of, a lot of times in social media, we get sidetracked wondering what the right way is, when really there's probably 99 ways to kind of crack these different codes. I don't want to go too much into podcasting or business right quick, because I just want to ask you before I forget how you got into being a coach. Now, you mentioned the previous business that you were in and kind of the most recent steps, but how do you go, Luke Page, from you're maybe in high school, I don't know, thinking of possible careers, like what was the path to getting here where you became where you are now, before we head too much into the future?
Yeah, man. Well, without going to the full detail, because it'd just be too long, but I guess that, growing up, my sister was a heroin addict. So going through a very unstable upbringing, seeing that and, throwing her life away and what it did to our family, I just made the association, hey, if I'm going to be the worst version of myself, this is what's going to happen. So then I go, okay, cool. Well, I have to be the opposite. I have to be the best version of myself, and I have to make sure everything in my life is great. So then I went out to be basically one of those typical achiever people, yeah? And ironically, they asked me this because I did a post yesterday. I wrote a post, I'll post it tomorrow, talking about how kind of this all started. And my dad gave me when I was 16, he bribed me to read a book. And he goes, hey, read this, I'll give you $30. Back in those days, I was kind of like, okay, I want the money, but I'm like, you know what? I don't want to read because I can't read. Well, not like I can't read, but I just couldn't. I didn't have any patience. I couldn't sit still. I'm laughing here because I'm like, I'm going to give you the short answer, but I'm giving the long answer anyway. So I thought, I want the money, but I don't like reading, so I'm just going to cheat. And I read a couple of pages at the front, the middle, the back. Then went to Dad and recited a few things, and he gave me the cash, right? But the book was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. One thing that stuck with me from that book was that when you plan for a future and you go in the pursuit of it, you can have anything. And I think it didn't instantly click, but soon after, maybe shit went down in the house or something like that. And I think I just made a decision where it's like, Luke, you've got to become great. And the future, we can't have this. What do we want? The opposite. So let's plan for it now and let's start making this happen. And man, I just started pursuing it. I started going to all these seminars, to do with making money and investing and all that. And dude, that's what I did from 16. I was rocking up to seminars with all these 50, 60-year-old adults, and I was a little kid there and doing all this crap and getting into investing when I was real young. And I thought money was initially, I thought money was the key to happiness. And I went down that path and started earning great money. And I learned that I was empty inside. And then from there, just because I've been to so many seminars, loved personal development, loved Tony Robbins. I went to Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. I don't know if you've heard of that. Mm-hmm. It's on Netflix. I'm Not Your Guru if anyone watches that. That's what the Date with Destiny. That there was the key point. Because I went there and I'd already been to some of these seminars, but I went there with the thought of, I'm coming here just because I like to be better myself. I'm coming here just to become a better version. I'm all good. I'm sweet. I'm just coming here because I'm for peak performance. And the first day, he finally came out, with big build up and all that and dancing around. Finally came out, Big Tony on stage, and he goes, all right, everyone sit down. He goes, everyone here is here for a reason. Some of you know it. You've come here for a particular reason. You've got a big problem and you want it fixed. Some of you don't actually know why you're here. You think you know you're here for a reason, but you're actually here for a completely different reason. And when he said that, I went shit, because I knew exactly what I was there for, which was I had super hatred for my sister. Super hatred, super blame, massive anger inside me. And I knew that shit, over this next 5-6 days, I'm going to have to confront all that and let it go. And I'm like, man, I've been I've been obsessing over this hatred for so long in my life. I don't want to let it go. I hated my sister, yeah. Man, through that seminar, guess what? What did I do? I let go of all that hatred for my sister and my life changed. My life completely changed because I could finally, what I'd done, I had blocked off my heart because I had all this anger inside and this blame for my sister. As soon as I let it go, I could start being myself, man. And I was kind of like, I just woke up after that, yeah? So after that seminar, I made up with my sister. I asked her to forgive me for being a really shit, unsupportive brother. Like, I'd never seen that, man. I was blaming her. I'm like, man, I was an unsupportive brother at the end of the day. She's going through tough times and I wasn't there for her. And I just went to all my members of my family and just say that I love them because I never done that before. And everything changed, man. From there, I just go, okay, what am I doing career-wise? This ain't right for me. I'm making heaps of money, but I'm like, I'm out of here. And I'm like, what do I want to do? And I'm like, coaching. Love personal development. So got a job in coaching and yeah, man, everything just started changing from there, man. So that was the point. I guess, obviously a series of things, but I guess if you could say the point, going to that date with Destiny, realizing that I wasn't aware of it. Even out of all the self-development I had done, did not realize that my anger and hatred towards my sister was actually stopping me getting what I so deeply yearned for. Yeah. I was on this quest of becoming super rich and successful, and I thought that's going to be the key to my happiness. All this pain inside is going to go, and I kept on climbing the ladder and getting there, but no matter how high I soared, I was still empty inside and I didn't get it. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to keep going to a seminar. I'll figure this out. And I never knew that it was this right here. I was blocking my heart. Out of all those years, probably as about 10 years, man, 10 years of this constant searching and, pushing to become successful and all that. And it was just letting go of that anger and hatred. So, man, that changed my life so much. And what's great about it is that I now have an awareness of when I see people doing the exact same thing as me. Yeah. When I see that person shooting for money and success, I can see, man, that's me. And I know exactly what's going on. And that's just given me such an awesome perspective when I am coaching people, because I always talk about, man, I'm a business coach, but I rarely speak about, we're here to make money and all that. But man, I'm constantly talking about, we're building a business to build a life. The worst thing that can ever happen is you build a successful business where you're making money, getting the clients and all that type of thing, but then you've destroyed your life in the process. And I constantly see that with successful coaches. I've had it with majority of my mentors. They're super successful in business, but something has fallen down in their life. They're unhealthy. Their relationship's broken up. Their kids don't like them. There's always something. And I'm like, man, why can't we have it bloody all? I'm so sick of seeing all these amazing leaders in the business space, but have ruined the rest of their life. And I'm like, I am so in the belief, and no one will ever tell me different, that you can have it all. And that's what I'm fucking here for, man. And that's what I'm just here to show everyone else. How do you do it? I got to lead the way and make it happen in my life. So it's like, be super healthy. Absolutely own yourself. Yeah. Be great in your relationship. Be an awesome dad. Be good to your family. Be a general good person. Yeah. Succeed in business. Manage your money. And guess what? It's bloody hard to pull all that shit off. Man, you've got to be a superhero. But it's not, when I say superhero, all it is just you have the intention and you never stop working at it. You'll drop the ball. Yeah. You'll always drop the ball. So for example, you'll go up and down, at the moment with business and things like that, it's flying. I haven't been so close with my wife because I haven't been giving her as much time. So I'm like, cool. Next week, I've got to put more time into my wife. Yeah. So you're kind of juggling this thing, but it's like, that's cool. The juggling's cool, but it's like when you destroy something, that's not cool. When it's like, we're getting divorced because I've built this business, or, hey man, I'm severely unhealthy now because I built this business. To me, that's not cool. So that's the message I want to give to my clients, man. I think that is the best message ever, because us as leaders, us as coaches, our audience and our clients are looking to us as the example. And I just think we have a duty, to be a role model and just be flying as much as we can in all these areas, because everyone wants that. Who doesn't want to be healthy? Who doesn't want to have money? Who doesn't want to be internally happy? Who doesn't want to have a loving relationship? We all want this general stuff, right? So I just think as coaches, man, we should just we have a duty to be really working on this shit constantly, actively working on it. So yeah, it's not about being perfect. It is simply about going, I ain't neglecting this area here, which is so important for the fullness of life. Yeah. So I'm going to actively have a life outside my business. I'm going to have hobbies. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to be there for my kids. I'm going to be there for my wife or husband. I'm going to be working out and exercising. So yeah, it's pretty full on. It's pretty full on, man. But
that's beautiful. And to borrow from 3 books, because I think that the greatest artists steal.
Hell yeah.
And okay, so I borrowed from Austin Kleon. That's a great book. Great. I steal like an artist. But 3 other ones, like 168 Hours, The One Thing, and Unicorn Space are 3 topics that you kind of brought up there. And I feel strongly that in 168 hours, we have all the time we need to achieve our true goals. And in The One Thing, he really talks about the idea of counterbalance, because if we set out to achieve balance, we're just going to constantly fail and then we're going to beat ourselves up. But to your point about spending more time with your wife next week, and believe me, I can feel it too. I was just talking with my wife about this morning, like, when are we going to make time for us, and then making sure that counterbalance swings back and forth. And you mentioned the taking care of your own hobbies, passions, and interests. A book that I read recently from Eve Rodsky, the idea of unicorn space, and how we, even no matter what we achieve, if we have our foundation of health and spirituality and relationships, and then we have all of our crazy business goals, we still need that one thing at least that just fuels us up because we enjoy doing it, whether it's, doesn't matter what it is, but our true creative space. And so I love that. I love that take on everything that you stand for as a coach. I think it can serve people really well. A lot of the things that we've talked about have been tied to like the idea of goals and maybe manifestation, to use a buzzword. I'm curious though, because we'll have to naturally wrap this episode at some point. Like I said, we can do another one in the future. But if you were to go kind of teach a masterclass, given that you do so many different things, podcasting, coaching, parenting, like again, there's so many different topics. If you were to create or be tapped to create a masterclass and you were going to be super excited to teach or coach or teach and coach that topic, like what would be that topic for you?
Amazing. What a question. The first thing that came to my mind, last year in my business was a tough year. The second half of the year, I went backwards financially. And I kind of looked at why did that happen? And I was doing everything, man. I was doing all the stuff on the outside. Always had a coach, and I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, why have I gone backwards in this period? Mm-hmm. And upon reflecting, I'm like, I felt like I neglected the internal stuff. So I just said to myself at the start of this year, I go, I'm going to give myself an experiment. Whenever I do something in my life, Justin asked my wife, if I'm like getting into some project in my life, man, I go hard on it. Yeah, I just immerse myself. So for example, like I'm buying a MacBook Pro. I'm switching from Windows to Apple. I'm making the change. Yes. Finally doing it, man. I just go hard in the research, and I go to the point where I could now sell Apple computers. Like, that's what I tend to do. If I go into something, man, I just go hard in the research and I immerse myself. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, this internal stuff. What if I went hard on it? Harder than I ever have before. And I've never not been a believer of your beliefs and your thoughts and everything like that, and the manifesting and all that type of stuff and energy. I've always been a part of it, but I've never fully gone hard on it. Yeah. And I said, what if I went hard on it? And that's exactly what I did. From my point of view, I went hard. I'm like, I'm going to go hard on this internal stuff. On the external, from knowing how to market and sell, I feel that, I know it at a pretty high level. It doesn't reflect the results that I got in the second half of last year. So it's got to be the internal stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to work on switching my thoughts. And that's what I did. So I basically started watching all these YouTube videos, everything to do with mindset, energy, manifestation. Got into, really in particular, got into Joe Dispenza, if you know Joe. Yeah. Bought one of his books, and I basically started putting together a plan, daily plan. I got out all the things in my life each day that didn't serve me. So I basically stopped kind of scrolling on social media, watching the news, anything like that didn't feed my mind. And I replaced all that time each day that I had now with intentionally feeding my brain and my thoughts and my mind and feeling how I want to feel when I got the things that I want in my life. And I started meditating, which I was never a major meditator. I started meditating about 90 minutes a day, which is crazy for me, yeah. Somehow pulled it off. And shit, man, in 10 days, things fucking changed. 10 days, literally 10 days. And that is, boom, I actually recorded everything. And like I said, lately, things have been happening, which it's all magic, man. It is all magic. And because of how much my life has changed in a short amount of time, it's proof that what did I change? Nothing on the outside. I went hard on the inside. And one thing that's really cool is that I had this habit with my wife of when we argued, generally what happens is my wife would kind of have a go at me. And then I defend myself majorly, yeah? I'm not really an attacker. She tends to launch at me, but I am a defender. But what would happen is that she would jump on me about something and I would snap at her back. And then we would have all these arguments. We kept on having them. And like, we're just like, man, in front of Louis, our son, we've got to stop these arguments, right? And I have always had this trait. I've never been able to break it, man. I've had it my whole life. This defensive thing. No matter how much personal development, the awareness of why I'm doing it. I know why I'm doing it, but in the moment, I just get triggered. And even though I say, my brain goes, Luke, you're doing it again, I still can't fight the urge. Guess what? I've stopped doing it after all these bloody years. And what did I do? Constantly every day, intentionally going, I no longer want to be this person, meditating on it. This is who I want to be, doing affirmations every day. And it completely changed. So if I had to run a masterclass, man, it would be around that, basically changing your thoughts and changing your life. Removing all the crap that you do every single day. Everyone, the typical person's got hours every day. If they stopped watching the news, scrolling social media, watching TV shows, movies, hanging around people that don't fill their cup, the average person will have at least a couple of hours. Turn that into intentional, I want to feed my mind with the right stuff, who I want to be, and feel the right way. Your life will change very bloody quickly. It's hard. It was very hard because I had to break all these habits, my body wanting to feel angry or frustrated, or, you know, when my wife would have a go at me, I wanted to so badly bite back at her. But overcoming that, man, the first time I did it, I'm like, oh my God, I was triggered. But when on the first time where I finally overcame it, even though I was triggered inside, I'm like, oh my God, this shit's working. And that just changed my belief. And it was all over from there, man. So it's kind of like, that's what I'd talk about. And I actually have updating my course right now purely because of that there. My new kind of belief around this stuff, where I'm going to be really pushing this stuff onto my clients and talking about the importance of really thinking and feeling who you want to be every single day, super intentionally. I think it's just a kind of a little highway path to getting what you want. So that's what I'd talk about, bro. That would be the masterclass.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. There's no arguing that it's the most important thing, no matter what your goals are, to take it all the way back to the beginning. It could be to be an actor. And I think that there's no better thing people can do than taking part in those kinds of things, whether it is manifestation as a word, or it's meditation, or these kind of like things that tie into Joe Dispenza and all that work that you're referring to. I'm glad I asked, because I love hearing people's interests. You could have been like, hey, I've been playing keyboard or piano since I was a child, and I really would love to teach it again or something, you know? And so have that be the answer. It's always, I just love hearing like a genuine, honest answer. And so I do want to ask one follow-up question. I think I heard you share that changing your thinking and how you feel is going to lead to the things you want and who you want to be. You mentioned Dispenza's book. So of course we could say, hey, read this book.
Yeah.
That's an obvious number one tip maybe. But I do feel like a lot of people listening won't necessarily go buy it, download it, read it all or whatever, and then be able to apply it. Plus there's nuance and like a personal take, I suppose. So is there anything that I'm leaving out, or like if you added like 2 or 3 more bullet points about how to change your life through manifestation and the power of belief?
No, look, if I had to sum it up, it's kind of like at the moment, you know, you wake up, you basically 95% of all your thoughts or 99% of your thoughts are just thoughts that you've thought yesterday. Now, if you want to change, you want to create a new reality or a new future, then you've got to change. If you keep doing the same shit, you stay where you are, right? So that's proof that you have to change in some way. Now, if you just wake up and do the same old crap, think the same old things, worry about the same old things, nothing's going to change. So the first thing is you have to become aware of what's actually going on in your mind, and becoming aware of the things that you think. So when you wake up and the first thought is, oh my God, fuck, here we go. And you're not aware that you're doing it, it's just happening, then you've got to start becoming aware of that's what I think. Or then when you walk outside and the dogs bark and then you're like, oh, fuck those dogs. You've got to first become aware of all these thoughts that are not serving you, yeah? Because once you can become aware of it, just like me with changing my defensive crap, once you become aware of it, then you have the chance of changing it, right? That's the first thing. Next thing is get really clear on what you want in your vision. And it's basically every single day you think about that. Who do I want to, I no longer want to be, yeah? I don't want to be this person. I don't want to be this person. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to think this way. I don't want to react to this person. Yeah. Who do I want to be? I want to be this person instead. I want to be this person. I want to be this person. Cool. Think about now becoming that person and feel exactly what it feel like to be that person. Think about the future that you want. Think about your vision. Put yourself in it. Run a movie. Do that in a deep state. Do it every single day. Do it 2 times, 3 times a day. And basically, I say obsess over it. We have obsessed over, I'm 36 years old. I don't know how old everyone is, but 20, 30, 40, 50 listening to this. You've obsessed the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your life over stupid shit. Like, I'm not really that good when it comes to, speaking in public. Or I'm not the most confident around people. You've obsessed over that shit for 20, 30, 40 years of your life. So what if you start obsessing over the things that you want? That's what we do. We obsess over the things we don't want. What if we changed it and just started obsessing every day on what we do want? You do that, you'll get what you want.
Love it. I think that's a great mic drop moment. As I referenced earlier, and it feels like every episode, it's always fun creating with awesome people who are bringing value to the world. And it's like we could definitely, we didn't even talk about parenting, and I know you have a lot of value to add there. Certainly, like how-to podcast is another topic. All this to say, you're really fun to create with, and I'm sure we'll do some things again in the future. Along those lines, I do like to ask some theme questions, and I really do like how they tie together every so often, every few episodes. So I'll lead into those so we can kind of wrap. But before I do, if there's anything on those topics that you would hate to not mention or leave out, is there anything? I'd like to at least give you a chance to mention anything.
I do want to say that one thing that I really appreciate is a great podcast host. And man, you are an awesome podcast host. Yeah. So I always, whenever I come across a good podcast host, that I always tell them, what's awesome about you, man, is basically, it's a conversation that goes anywhere, but it's like you're taking the information that you grab from what the guest has said, and then you build on questions of that, as opposed to you might have a question or two that's in there that you've already planned to ask, but in general, majority of it is you build on what is discussed and it goes where it needs to go. And that's what a magical conversation is. Yeah. I think with podcasting, obviously everyone's different, but I love with podcasting is that, hey, if you can get a podcast where it's a conversation, but you're getting value and learning shit at the same time,
yeah,
I think that's a magic of a podcast, as opposed to, hey, step 1, this is what you're going to learn. Step 2, step 3, step 4, you know what I mean? It's like, question 7's up now. You know what I mean? So awesome job, man, because that takes skill to do that. So I just want to say thanks. And anyone listening to this, make sure you keep following Justin, because you've got an awesome podcast right here.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. That's humbling and brings happy tears to my eyes to hear that, because, it's not by accident. I've put a lot of work into it. I'm sure much like you have with all the goals that you have. And I'm sure if I were to listen in on a coaching session of yours, it probably is similarly professional and that. So I really do appreciate it. It means a lot.
No problems, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, at the sake of not just complimenting each other back and forth, you have great conversations too, which is why I'm sure you're a great coach. So
thanks, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it. The first themed question is, if you were to leave one piece of advice for the next generation, that legacy, that breadcrumb we leave behind, given that you have children, I think that is something that is often front of mind for us as parents, like the fact that we are paving the way for the next generation. What would one piece of advice be?
The thing that came in was follow your heart. That's it. Let your heart out. I think your heart will lead you where you need to go and where you want to go. You block it, then you're going to end up in the wrong places.
Love that. Not overthinking. And one thing that you yourself are learning right now might be on brand, off topic, but just something that you yourself are engaged in learning right now.
Apart from what I just said in regards to the thought stuff, I would have to say the acting stuff would be secondary. Yeah. Like just, learning to, when the camera is in front of me, to be in the moment. Yeah. Because I guess with acting, it's like, well, we're just acting on things and thoughts and feelings that we've done in real life. I think that's what great actors do, is they can basically turn on emotions that they've done in their life. But people that aren't so good actors, they then go, okay, now it's time to be a happy person or a sad person. And it's like they turn into a robot, they shut themselves off. So I think that with me, it's like I'm learning to, when the camera's on, to get out of my head and just forget the camera's there and recall something that I'm already an awesome expert at. So that's been a challenge, man. And that's something that I'm really learning and pushing myself with.
That's so cool because we talked way earlier, an hour ago, about the things that people could leverage to actually succeed as actors.
Yes.
And now you just mentioned following your heart, and the idea of not overthinking is such a good example of how you could leverage like getting exponentially better at acting, because that's actually one of the tricks that's maybe counterintuitive.
Yeah, it's nuts.
The other funny thing, and this is hilarious for background actors, is when we're doing a podcast like this, even NVIDIA AI would want to correct to put our eyes on the camera. Whereas when you're acting, it's like, just pretend there's no camera there. Such a fascinating thing, It's like, don't stare at the camera.
Don't stare at the camera.
It's gonna look awkward.
Yeah, I know.
It's too funny. And then just to flip the mic, you are a podcaster, so this should come natural, but I know I'm putting you on the spot. But if you were to ask me a question, what's a question that comes to mind?
Well, the first thing would be, how did you figure out how to become the host that you are? Do you feel that you're being a naturally conversational person and it just has naturally happened? Or have you actually gone, this is how I'm going to do it, I'm going to work on this? Like, how have you have you adapted your style and created your style that you got?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's evolved and changed for sure. And one thing that I think back to is the very first episode with Buster Shear. We were talking about the fact that like there's not really an age thing that dictates if we're strong or not at having conversations. Leading into that conversation, interestingly enough, I tapped Jacob Kelly, who was basically the only person that I knew personally who had a podcast at the time, to ask what his process was. And his is very in depth, and he goes through a series of questions that guides the guest on kind of like a journey that he had planned. And again, to each their own, whatever works for you. But when he first shared that with me, I was like, okay, well, that's probably what I have to do. And then I caught Tim Ferriss being interviewed himself, where he was sharing how he takes 4 buckets and themes, and then he just goes and sees what connections are made throughout. And so for me, it was funny because going back to that very first episode, I remember really struggling with, like, I was looking at my page that I had written like 30 things down.
Yeah.
And then bouncing back and forth between, well, like, Buster's just this awesome dude, and we just started talking about hip hop. I could probably talk about that for like an hour, but I was going to ask him these 4 things, and I don't want him to be gone because who knows, I may never talk to him again for 6 years. To answer your question, I was kind of stuck, but I figured it out through the first 50, 60 interviews, now heading towards there, like over time, what feels most natural. And the other thing that Buster and I talked about, and again, it goes back to that first episode, was how I'm kind of glad that I didn't start creating in the world of social media until I was in my 30s. And the reason for that is back to your comment about being a conversationalist. Like, I have a comfort level with, we're kind of all just people. Of course, I appreciate whoever's on the other side of the interview, but I don't get like super starstruck. I just see it as creating with another person who wants to make something for an hour together. I don't know if I would have seen it like that 20 years ago.
That's an awesome skill, man. Like, that you can do that, to have that, to be grounded in that person. Because it is true, but it's like the starstruck thing when you got someone in front of you who you maybe you look up to, or they're considered like a leader in their field. And I mean, we're all just bloody scared little people running around that we excel in certain areas over each other. And then, other areas we're not as good as each other, but ultimately it's just what it is. We're kind of the same thing. So that the fact that you know that, but can still ground yourself in it, that's just like man, you're just like kind of really mature in that level. Yeah. So, no, I mean, I've got heaps out, like even just you interviewing, just running this, man, I've like learned some really cool stuff. So I don't have a hat on, man, but I will take my virtual hat off, my little invisible hat off to you. So well done. It's been really cool.
Same to you. It's been a pleasure. It's been really good. And like I said, we'll definitely run it back in the future. But the last question is always, where can people find you online if they want to support your work or they want to hire you as a coach?
Yes. I got my own podcast, so the Luke Page Podcast. And if you're on Insta, at Luke_Page. And the page as in just a paper page, you write on a page, that one.
That's perfect. You should use that as marketing material if you haven't yet.
I think
that's a great idea. And you should run that like daily.
You started this podcast with something like, I think you said something like take a page out of a book or something like that. And I'm like, is this guy?
I did, yeah.
Did you intentionally do that? And I'm like,
no.
Well, there you go.
That's too funny.
Very good, mate. Very good.
Yeah, that's too funny. You should start really using that as like subliminal, non-subliminal messaging. I think that would crush. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know that you are very busy, as we all are in this creative space, and it just means a lot taking the hour to create together. Just want to say thank you.
Thanks, bro.
Right on. Woo. JKL community, thank you so much for being here. It's our dream to help millions of people achieve their own dreams, so please do continue to pass the show along. Thank you to our guest for this episode, Luke. He has helped many clients in life and business with his coaching, and I know that he loved the opportunity to come share some of these themes with you as well. As always, we love getting your DMs and comments about the show. If you have any input on guests or topics, please don't be shy, just let us know. Until the next episode, all the best, and as always, just keep learning.
You're one step closer to making your big dreams come true, but there's plenty more where that came from. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode, and if you know anyone who might love the show, send them a link. We'll see you next time on Just Keep Learning with Justin at Just Tries.